met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Let's Talk Movies. I am Brad.
And I'm Miguel.
And welcome to the Season 2 premiere of Purely and Simply Evil. And this season, we are talking about the one and only Mr. Fredward Krueger. Fredward, right? Freddy Krueger. We are talking.
That's the name on his social security card.
That's his like a government issued name, right? We are talking A Nightmare on Elm Street, the franchise. Not in this episode, but in this season. You get an entire season of this. So, and we'll throw in a couple of extra ones in there too. But in our 11th episode, this episode that you are watching right now, at this very moment in time, on your couch or in your bed or on the toilet, wherever you may be, you are watching our 11th episode where we are talking and taking a deep dive into Wes Craven's 1984 masterpiece, A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Welcome to prime
Super
time,
stoked to be here. Also, that's not until part 3. We haven't gotten there yet. By the way, our full commentary of A Nightmare on Elm Street is out now on the channel. Dropped last night at 8 p.m. So that is on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. And you can go and just watch the movie with us and get our shot-for-shot thoughts. Shot for shot, shoot the shit, whatever. So, Miguel, buddy, how are you doing on this beautiful Tuesday night? It turned out to be pretty nice tonight. It's a little cold.
I'm sorry, guys. As soon as you switched back to us, I was deep throwing the fuck out of that bagel. Oh, that's not very pleasant to see. I was hoping to get a bite so I can chew, but no, you decided to switch it back to us.
No. How are you doing with that big old, what is it, peanut butter toast? Is that what you're doing? That sounds good right now.
Bagel.
Actually,
because my pantry do be light right now, but we're making it work.
It's okay. It happens. It happens.
Nevertheless, yeah,
it happens.
Good day. I'm ready to talk about Freddy. I'm ready to get my my weird on because I got to be honest. Compared to all the other horror icons in this genre, the weirdest top 2 is at second Chucky and at 1 Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, Freddy is definitely he's an interesting character because you have Michael of the big 3 or 4. You have Michael and Jay. Let's say 4 of Michael, Jason, Leatherface. They don't really speak. At the most, you get grunt noises from Leatherface and Michael, and Jason. You just don't get anything. It's just nothing there. But Freddy, what makes Freddy scary in my eyes is Freddy taunts you. Freddy wants to get under your skin. Freddy is a character that was built on the fears of children and on your nightmares. You know what I mean? He uses the things that you're afraid of. He uses your deepest, darkest secrets and your deepest, darkest fears because he's in your brain. He's in your head. He's in your dreams, in the place that you're the most vulnerable. So I think that's why, and there's kind of this whole debate with whether you like the Freddy from part 1 and 2 and kind of half of 3 where he's kind of serious and he's menacing and he's scary, or if you like kind of as he's known as MTV Freddy, where he's wearing sunglasses and he's calling people bitches all the time and he's kind of wisecracking and making jokes. There's just kind of those two camps. I think he's
like the evil version of Spider-Man in regards to attitude.
I've never heard anybody
in regards to quips,
compare him to Spider-Man. I mean, yeah, but I mean, I see what you're saying. He's very quippy. He's funny. He gets under your skin. He makes terrible, off-color jokes, and it works.
A fight between Spider-Man and Freddy Krueger, that'd be fucking dope.
Would he be in
Dream World?
Well,
past the Dream World stuff, in real life, they brought Freddy back to real world.
Oh, Spider-Man. See, that's the thing. In Dream World, Spidey's dead. But in real world,
I know, right?
Freddy's
he uses web shooters and it's fucking confetti. He's like,
I know, right? I need one of those YouTube channels that does like the, you know what I'm talking about, like the fight scenes. Like there's one like Batman versus Deadpool, and there's the Joker versus Negan from The Walking Dead. Like there's just like they just do like different stage fights, and they're really cool. Like they're pretty cool to watch.
Like Bathe and Sun? I don't know. I don't know, but
I
know
don't
what you're
remember
talking about.
yeah, you may know what I'm talking about if you're watching, but yeah, that'd be kind of cool to do a Freddy Krueger versus Spider-Man. That'd be dope. So let's hop into this thing. November 4th, 1984, written and directed by Wes Craven, produced by Rob Shea of New Line Studios. Opened on November 9th, like we just said. Elm Street was New Line Cinema's first major success story. New Line Cinema was founded, I believe, in 1966 or 67. And it's often referred to as the house that Freddy built because New Line Cinema was kind of nothing before A Nightmare on Elm Street came along. And of course, since A Nightmare on Elm Street, New Line Cinema has had, plenty of hits of their own,
I was saying, it's mainly been like scary movies, like horror.
Let's see.
The Conjuring, Final Destination, The Nun.
Did you look it up?
Yeah, Annabelle, It,
all their films.
The new Stephen King It.
Well, they did all the Lord of the Rings stuff.
Yeah, and they did Friday is like their like poster child as compared to Lord of the fucking Rings. Sure, I'm sure a lot of sweaty Lord of the Rings fans are gonna be upset with that.
They did Austin Powers. They did The Mask. They did the Sex and the City films. Elf. They did Elf. I didn't know they did Elf.
See, if I had to see now that you say this, if I had to choose like a fucking I don't know why my screen's not okay. If I had to choose like a like movie studio that I like the most, it'd probably New Line.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I'm not really. And this is not really a New Line thing. This is more of a, like, if you look at their biggest franchises, like arguably their biggest franchise other than the Sex and the City stuff, would probably be the Lord of the Rings stuff. And I am not a Lord of the Rings fantasy hobbit. I can't do it. I don't know what it is. Same thing with Game of Thrones. I just can't do it. I don't know why. I cannot get into it. And I know you watch Game of Thrones. Julius watched Game of Thrones. Like everybody.
But I have not watched Lord of the Rings, so I do apologize. I will eventually do that.
I've tried. I can't do it. I don't know. Maybe we'll do it for the show at some point. Maybe a couple years down the line, we'll do a Lord of the Rings episode. But
yeah, we'll put it on our Patreon. No, I'm kidding.
Maybe someday. You never know. You never know. So now, speaking of success, listen to this. Elm Street was made for a budget. Guess what the Elm Street budget was. Take a guess.
$12 million.
1.1 million.
I was
Elm
off
Street
by 2.
Elm Street. You said 12 million.
I know, it's off by a 2. If you take the 2 out, it's 1 billion.
12 minus 1.1 is not 2.
Hey, you know what?
What kind of math are you doing?
I don't make up the math rules, dog.
What?
I don't make up the math rules.
Whatever. Anyways, $1.1 million, but it grossed over $57 million at the box office. Now, when you start talking about a movie that's made over $55 million in profit, that's a huge win, especially for a studio that hadn't really seen that kind of success before. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure Rob Shea must have been like, cha-ching. It's like Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob when, like, the money thing, like, cha-ching, and it, like, the money signs, like, the green flashes in his eyes. Like, that had to have been a really big deal for those people.
Yeah, you got to think.
And I'm sure that was a big, that was cool.
Yeah, at the end of their run, they're probably, like, looking at each other in the office and be like, bro, how the fuck did we make that out of a horror movie?
That's definitely a day they all probably went out for beers. Like,
yeah, I would say.
Like, they went to TGI Fridays after that, no doubt.
Right?
And not to mention that critics love this movie, which is kind of something that we don't really see very often in horror films. And, most of the time in horror movies, the majority of the time, critics aren't big on horror movies. They kind of, even if you look at Rotten Tomato scores, which really don't matter, and if you look at, like, even reviews for professional reviews, people who are movie critics, like, for their main job, they usually don't like horror films. But critics actually really liked Elm Street, and it kind of goes to show you that, like, because it was a rarity for horror, like it goes to show you like how influential this story was and how much of a deal, how much of a big deal this story was, right?
Yeah.
So before we go any further, I have got to mention that JT is in the chat. What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Hey, JT.
He says, happy to be here and always proud of you guys. Dude, we are proud of you.
Thank you.
It. So we just glad you're a part of this community we're building, man. Got to have you back on soon. We got to have you on for a Purely and Simple Evil episode. So be thinking about a movie you want to talk
Hey, if you're a Freddy fan, hey, yeah, hop on.
Yeah. Be thinking about a movie and we'll have you on. So the music was by Charles Bernstein, that's another thing that I want to bring up in a little bit. We'll come back to the music. The music in this movie was amazing because the music and soundscape is what it doesn't get enough credit for what it does for like the weird, trippy, dreamy atmosphere that like an Elm Street movie like needs to survive. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like if you're not, that's the thing is this could have failed, but they did such a good job. Like I even mentioned this in our commentary a couple of times, like, you know, if a lot of the scenes, there's not a clear moment where like, you're like, okay, this is real life. Now they're dreaming. This is real life. Now they're dreaming. It just seamlessly, like, you don't know what's real and what's, you know, until something happens. Like, I think of the example with Nancy, like, you know, she opens when Glenn is sitting next to her, when baby Johnny Depp is sitting next to her in the chair, and she's like, you know, you're going to clock the bastard when I pull him out, you know, whatever. And she's setting her alarm on her watch and stuff like that. Like she, when she opens her eyes and is walking around, you almost don't know if she's dreaming or not. But like you said, there's always fog in the dreams. And I never noticed that before. As many times as I've seen Elm Street, there's always fog when there's a dream sequence happening. And then of course there's always one thing, like usually like in Nancy's dreams, she kept seeing Tina, whether she was in the body bag being drug around at school. Tina. My wife, listen, we saw Elm Street at the, last year. It was the first time she had ever seen it. We saw it at the drive-in in Bourbon County, Kentucky. And
hell yeah, Bourbon County, shout out
Bourbon County. And
that's
a little outside of Lexington.
Bourbon County folks not gonna like you.
Really bad. I know. We're gonna get unupset with that, but it's okay. But literally a month after she saw this movie, she'd walk around corners going, Tina. Like all the time. So that's kind of our ongoing joke. I'm like, hey, babe, you know what we're talking about tonight? She's like, what? I said, Tina.
I bet she'd be like, I'll be in your ear like, Tina. She'd be in your ear like that. Don't even lie.
I don't ever want to see you do that ever again. I just want to say I don't ever want to see you do that again. Art Wishwood's in the house, buddy. How you doing, man? We haven't seen you in a while. My favorite part is the ending when the blow-up doll gets sucked into the door by Freddy. Yeah, we'll get there too. I think at the time
Brad doesn't like that ending. I thought that was probably like one of the most frightening.
No, I like the ending. I think the ending is cool, but like it's exactly like Art said. It's literally like a blow-up doll. Like a sex doll or something that just gets like whoop. And yeah. If it was a dummy and the legs actually flailed or the arms like got stuck, that's one thing.
But
it literally looks like you took a balloon and just went whoop. Like there's no, you know what I mean? There's no like finesse to it. It's just like her body just stays still the entire time. So I think it makes it kind of look strange. What did we get off on a tangent about? I don't even remember. Oh, the dreaminess of it, like the dreams and all that stuff, like the soundscape. The music does not get enough credit in this movie. And Charles Bernstein did a phenomenal job with it. And, you know, you have to think Elm Street does kind of continue, like it reinforces a lot of the themes that horror was kind of, that films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween had already kind of set up in the late 70s and early 80s, like the idea that, you know, the virgin is leading the film. She's the one that makes it out alive, but all of her friends that get into trouble are they're the ones that are picked off. And I mean, Nancy Thompson is arguably, I mean, she is one of the most popular final girls in horror history. You know what
I remember when I told you guys that Laurie Strode, it was probably my favorite final girl. Well, Nancy's pretty close up there.
Listen, I wouldn't put it against you at all. If I don't know, for me it's kind of even actually. Like I
would say
honestly,
yeah.
I like Laurie Strode better. I'm a Halloween guy, and I think I like Laurie Strode a little bit better. But I will say, in terms of what final girl home run, Nancy hit a home run. Like Nancy,
dap up Nancy right there. She actually gave it. She gave some thought.
I mean, she gave it the old college try. Like she set up traps and, she literally pulled a Kevin McAllister. I mean, it's like Home Alone up in her house,
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, she had a plan. She was
Except
like, okay, Glenn is going to do this.
Gunpowder.
Yeah. And I mean, she had the gunpowder. She had all the booby traps. I like that scene when her and Glenn are on the bridge and Johnny Depp turns her book over and he's like, what's the book called? It's
survival tactics.
It's a survival thing, and it's like tactical weapons and anti-personnel devices or something like that. And he's like, "What are you reading this for?" And it's just cool, man. She is definitely. Listen, again, if anybody was going to put her as their top final girl, I would have no issue with that at all.
I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't argue with you.
And it's funny because it's interesting that Laurie Strode and Nancy aren't really. Like, I don't think of Nancy, Laurie, obviously. No, not necessarily comparable, but they both, they're not like good old girls, you know what I mean? Like, they curse and
Laurie was definitely a good old girl.
Yeah, she smoked. Everybody points to the fact that she smoked weed in the car with Annie, though. But apparently, that I don't know. I don't think that really makes you a bad person. No, you know what I mean? It's not like she did anything like that bad. So I don't know. But that's what people kind of point to in terms of like they all have their things. But I mean, in terms of, obviously with Rod, like with Rod, they suspected him of Tina's murder, but he wasn't really a bad guy. I mean, he was a douchey high school jock. I mean, that's what Rod was.
Pretty much.
Tina and I almost said Tina and Laurie. Tina and Nancy are just your typical high school girls. And then...
But I will commend this fucking movie for actually hiring people high schoolers to like close to that age to play high schoolers. I will commend them for that because I don't know what that trope was back then, but like...
I don't think it was a trope.
By like bad casting, like everyone that was gonna be like play a young person in a movie back in the 80s or so. Yeah, they were all played by like fucking people that are like in their 40s or 50s. Like I'm talking like mutton chops down to their fucking jawline. I'm like, bro, where are we going with this?
I don't think it was really a trope though. I think it was a lot of. I think horror was still kind of taboo a little bit.
So like your parents went like, I'm not gonna let you star in that. Movie.
I don't know. Like, I was listening to really good listen. If you guys remember, Eli Roth's History of Horror on AMC. It was a show on AMC. It may still be going. I'm not sure, but they put a lot of the uncut interviews in podcast form on Spotify. It's on Shudder, and a lot of they're really cool interviews. So far, I've listened to the Jamie Lee Curtis one, and I just finished the Tom Savini one, which is fantastic. The Tom Savini interview was amazing. Where was I about to go with that? What were we just talking about? Oh, the casting people thing. Yeah. Like, I believe they actually wanted, because, of course, Jamie Lee Curtis's parents, Janet Leigh and I forget his name, something Curtis. I forget her father's name, but they asked her parents if she could audition for The Exorcist when she was little, and they were like, no. And I think her mom. I feel like I remember her saying her mom didn't want her to audition for Halloween. I think horror, especially if you were a teenager, horror is kind of like no, like I mean, obviously a teenager would do it, but like they had to find people that were in their early 20s. But I mean, they did a great job casting. I liked all four of them, and they even talk about that in Never Sleep Again. Like all four of our main characters, like they have chemistry. Like it's not like Friday the 13th where the characters have a little bit of chemistry, but they're there to be killed. These characters, like, I mean, we start off with Tina. Like it gives you time to get emotionally attached to each of the characters, and that's really important. Like that's what makes this movie very standalone, or not standalone, but it stands out amongst others because you really care about the characters.
Yeah, I will say that I was really surprised with Tina's death because I thought she'd be the final girl. I was very surprised by that.
Man, Tina's death is it is wild.
That was rough, but
it is wild. Art says, I love Home Alone 1 and 2. Well, apparently Nancy Thompson does too. Let's petition for a Laurie versus Nancy film. I'd do it. It'd be cool. It'd be funny to see like Nancy versus like Sarah Connor Laurie, though. You know what I mean? Laurie that's like a survivalist. I was like Sarah Connor. She's got grenades in her back pocket, and you know what I mean, all that kind of stuff. She said it'd be like a horror, I can't talk. I don't know what I'm saying. It'll be like a horror version of Mortal Kombat. Dude, that'd be awesome.
I don't know. I'll probably give it to Nancy because you know why? She was raised by fucking John Saxton. I'll give her that. I'm just saying.
Listen, we're doing our commentary, and John Saxton comes on the screen for the first time, and Miguel goes, he's a man.
He's a man. I swear, if you needed a man to play in like in that time of movies, it was John Saxton.
Man.
Like it's like John Saxton just something.
Art said, I've never had mutton chops. Are they good, Miguel?
They're pretty good. They're pretty delicious. Did I say it wrong? I'm sorry.
No, you said it right.
Okay.
Yeah, History of Horror is awesome, dude. You should definitely, if you're on Spotify or Shudder, you should check out the uncut interviews because they're pretty cool. So now the idea for A Nightmare on Elm Street kind of came from a few different sources. For starters, kind of what we talked about in season 1 with the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, the Vietnam War. And there were newspaper stories back in the early to mid 70s about Vietnam War refugees that were, fleeing from the fighting in Vietnam, and they were suffering from some type of sleep disorder plus PTSD. I mean, you got to think the awful situation that these people would have been in. I mean, you feel terrible for them. And they were suffering from a sleep disorder, and they were refusing to go to sleep because of these awful, terrifying nightmares that they were having. And Wes Craven kind of cited that he had read about this in the newspaper. And he was kind of like, holy shit, you know what I mean? Like, that's a kind of wild thing. And eventually...
Holy shit, let's make a movie, guys.
I know, right? Write that down. Eventually, they died violently in their sleep with zero explanation for it at all. And it was like a wide variety of people. Like, it was young people, it was old people. Like, the only I think they... Let me...
What, dying in your sleep?
Sudden unexpected death syndrome. That was the cause. That was
how the fuck is that a syndrome?
Exactly. That's not a I don't know. I feel like that's a way to just write it off and be like, okay, sure, that's how they died. When you really don't know, you know what I mean? Like, because you have to say something. Like, what does that mean? And I think the question of that, I think the fear of like, holy crap, how did these people die? Like that doesn't even make any sense. I think that's part of what kind of inspired him. Like Wes Craven even said, it was a series of articles in the LA Times, 3 small articles about men from Southeast Asia, who were from immigrant families and had died in the middle of their nightmares, and the papers never corroborated them. They never said, hey, we have another story like this. It was all kind of not brushed under the rug, but nobody ever kind of followed up with, different sources. I mean, it was just, that's kind of a wild thing to read about. Like, that's the kind of thing that, makes you like, what? Like, could you imagine being the guy that like, I mean, it's even kind of crazy to think about like Wes Craven reading about all these stories over a period of time and this kind of starting to rumble around in his head, this idea of, a movie about nightmares. And there's kind of this demon, this dream demon in your nightmares, this person you can't escape. And that's a scary thought.
I mean, yeah. When this movie came out? 1984. Yeah, there's a lot of wild shit going on in 84.
Yeah. Well, and this was from the mid 70s, the early to mid 70s that he was reading about.
Oh, okay, so that makes sense because again, during like the 70s and 80s, that was when like a lot of things were being discovered. We don't know what the fuck it is.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of people making some crazy ideas in the movie industries. Like I said, guys, the 70s and 80s was probably like one of like, without a doubt, like a renaissance for like fucking movies. Like a lot of people just went out on their own. They just made like anything and everything. They said, "Well, can we make a script? You got a script? All right, cool."
And let's be real. If you're gonna go for a wild and crazy story like A Nightmare on Elm Street, the 80s horror craze was the perfect time. You know what I mean? And this is part of what got us into the 80s. I mean, it wasn't in full swing just yet, but we were getting there. I think this was the thing that was like, okay, the ball is rolling. Like, you've had Halloween, you've had Friday the 13th, you've had Halloween 2, you've had other horror movies, you've had Texas Chainsaw, you've had The Exorcist, you've had Jaws. Like, the ball is rolling at this point. And Nightmare on Elm Street, I feel like, is something that just like really pushed it over the edge.
Yeah, they were like, okay, well, I guess everything's free now.
Yeah. By the way, Art says, "Oh, do you guys have a Buc-ee's in Kentucky? They have great brisket sandwiches." Listen, we're gonna pause for a second.
I called him. I texted him like earlier this afternoon, and I was like, hey, serious question. Should I go to this Buc-ee's? Because I was genuinely like kind of concerned. Because I was like, dog, like, I know Buc-ee's is popping. I know it's a popping place.
It's funny you say that, Art, because we had one open in our hometown in Richmond, Kentucky this morning, like open the doors today.
Yeah.
And I can't believe how big of a deal it is. People are coming out of the woodwork from Lexington and from Winchester and from Versailles. I'm just like everywhere. People are driving like an hour to come to this Buc-ee's. And I'm like, what? I'm like, how? Like, they had pictures on the news and video of cars parked like out on the street. And I was like,
you can make that another town. Bro, like, I'm not kidding. Like, the population at that Buc-ee's this morning was probably double of like the Richmond's like population. I was like, holy shit.
So listen, the amount of people at Buc-ee's is going to be like do you recommend? He said they have great brisket sandwiches. So.
Great brisket sandwiches. Anything else?
Julia wants to go.
Put it in the comments, because I swear to God, I don't want to go in there and just not know what the fuck I'm doing. So
I heard people talk about it all day at work, and then I got home and I was like, hey, Jules, and she said, I really want to go to Buc-ee's. I was like, wow, you too, apparently. Okay. I was like, all right, everybody wants to go to Buc-ee's, apparently. I guess it's
I might stop by tomorrow. And so just let me know what you think I should get. I'll grab like a brisket before work.
We'll have to see. So as for Freddy himself, he pulled inspiration from an experience that Wes Craven had as a child. So for starters, he was bullied by a kid named Fred Krueger. But more significantly,
I wonder what his life is like.
I know, right? I wonder what that guy thinks of the fact that that he named this like awful character after him.
He's probably like, where's my check?
It's funny because like you also have to think, God, you got to think. I feel like I forget who it was. John Carpenter named Michael Myers after like a dick boss he had or something like that. Like, I think he named Michael Myers after somebody too, and not Mike Myers, like Austin Powers.
Yes, he is Mike Myers.
I know. No, have you seen that video of him? It's like an overdub. It's like if Mike Myers played Michael Myers in Halloween, and Laurie's like, it's like after Laurie falls down the stairs and she's trying to limp away, and Michael like rounds the corner, she's coming down. He's like, "I'm gonna eat you.
I'm gonna eat you. Get in my belly."
And then like at the end when he's busting through the closet, his head like busts through and he like looks at her and he's reaching for it. He's like, "Do I make you horny, baby? Do I make you randy?" And he says he's reaching for it in the closet. It's funny. It's really funny. But so he named Freddy after a child bully he had, but more significantly, he referred to a moment that he had as a child. And this actually does sound really creepy. And if you've seen Never Sleep Again, which is the documentary about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, which interestingly enough, was written and directed by the same guy who wrote Halloween 6, which is kind of fun. I like movie things.
I like movies. That's why I have a podcast.
We need to rename it I Like Movies, not Let's Talk Movies. I Like Movies.
I like movies.
Pink and purple with a little heart. So he referred to a moment when he was a kid that he was a kid and they were looking out the window. He was looking out the window as a kid. I think they lived in like
don't lie, he was peeping Tom.
Higher rise apartment, and there was an elderly man walking by. And if I remember correctly, he actually wore a fedora. He had the trench coat. He had the sweater on, like the whole 9 yards. And that wasn't like a red and green sweater, but what?
A trench hoe? What? A trench what?
A trench hoe?
A trench hoe?
A trench hoe. But he like, and he had the full Freddy get up on. May not have been a red and green sweater, but who cares? And you know, he's looking out the window at him. He's looking out the window. He's kind of peeking, and suddenly this guy kind of senses that somebody's watching him, and the guy just kind of tilts his head up and looks at him. And of course, when you're a kid and you're looking at something you shouldn't, and somebody catches you, you're like, you got to duck that down, right? He ducked that down below the window. And when he lifted his head up, the guy was like, and the guy was like smiling at him, and he was toying with him. Like he actually like stood out there for a few minutes, kind of like, and as a kid, you're like, you don't know what is getting ready to happen.
See, like, you know how when a baby is like looking at you, kind of giving faces, that's cute. When you do that to like a teenager in his room looking out the window late at night, that's really fucking weird.
But I don't think he was a teenager. I think he was like a kid. Like, I think he was like an elementary school aged kid, like, third.
See, that's just fucking weird, dog. Wherever that man is, I hope he's incarcerated.
Well, I'm sure he's passed away by now. I mean, Wes Craven's passed away.
They say the same thing about Freddy.
Yeah. So, I mean, young Wes Craven is terrified looking out this window. I mean, thinking this guy is taunting him, and like, it's just a very creepy, uncomfortable moment.
Yeah.
But even, everything about Freddy was very like specific, like even from the colors, I remember reading that Wes Craven knew that the two colors that the human retina picks up the least, like especially when they're right next to each other, like the two hardest colors to see are red and green.
Is it?
Yeah, like if you see red and green together, your eyes can't, and like, I mean, you don't notice it, I don't think, but it's hard on your eyes. Like you can't fully see like the tint of red or green. But I mean, think of how many people are red and green colorblind. Like that's a common thing. So I mean, I'm sure. I mean, I'm not saying there's a correlation, but I'm sure it's possible that there is.
It's hard on the. See, I was thinking that because last time I was at a stoplight and I almost puked.
What?
It's red and green, ain't it? Apparently.
Yeah, but that's odd though.
Stoplights are kind of hard on the eyes.
You know what I mean? Like that's an odd.
You're just driving, all of a sudden you're just like.
Somebody's looking at you.
That's why
they're just looking over at you. All they see is this. It's like lean out the window.
he's like begging for the yellow light to come on.
and then the light changes. You're like, oh, thank God.
Oh my God. But yeah, that doesn't make sense. I'm sorry.
There's something about the colors that clash. And, he wanted him to look different. He wanted him to be able to taunt and speak, which is different than Freddy and Jason, or than Michael and Jason. Yeah. Freddy is supposed to be nasty and crude. He's supposed to play with you and get under your skin. It's like a cat playing with a mouse before they eat it. Like, it's more about it's about the journey, not the destination.
Where'd that come from? Did I miss that in the movie?
I don't know. I'm being serious, but like it's real. It's about that the game. Like Tina's death is arguably one of the most. It may be one of the best death scenes in any movie of all time, because the build up to her death is so well done. I mean, because you have the build up from the very beginning of the movie when she's dreaming. And she's in the long gray hallway, and the sheep runs across, and there's fun. It's just, again, it's weird. It's like when you dream, and there are things that are just like, what like, the fuck why did I dream that? Yeah. Like, why was I dreaming about a tiger eating a popsicle? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? And it's the same kind of thing. When the sheep runs across, it's almost like, what? Like,
yeah, like for instance, the other night, I had a dream that I was looking for my lost semi truck. Like, bitch, what the fuck? Doesn't make any sense. Like I woke up thinking like I don't even own a semi, let alone know how to drive one. What the fuck am I doing looking for one? I was like, bro, what the fuck are we getting at? So yeah, I've never dreamed of a sheep. I don't know.
And it doesn't have to make sense. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to make sense. Like
a semi-sized sheep.
Huh?
A semi-sized sheep. That would be freaky.
Yeah. Yep. That would be. Could you imagine?
No, it would like it's like bah, would probably sound like a fucking semi truck horn. You know what I mean? But like bah. Oh my God, audio people fucking hate us.
I know right this. Now. I know our audio listeners are probably like, I'm never listening to these two idiots again.
Yeah.
And you want to hear something funny? Listen, he's making a movie about this pedophilic, awful human being, this scumbag who is killing people and taunting them in their dreams. You know the first studio that Wes Craven pitched Nightmare on Elm Street to?
Miramax?
The Walt Disney Company.
Fuck yes.
He pitched it to the Walt Disney Company, but they want.
That was a giant like middle finger to the fucking company.
Disney wanted it, but they wanted to tone it down and make it for younger audiences. They wanted to make it like an animated thing. You know what I mean? They wanted to tone it down. They wanted it to be fun Nightmare on Elm Street. You know.
I don't know. Like Disney made some pretty hard hitting shit. I'm not gonna lie.
They did. Honestly, Disney probably could have taken it and done something pretty cool. But that's kind of what they wanted to do. Paramount and Universal both passed. They weren't interested. And then, of course, that was when Rob Shea and New Line Cinema picked it up. But, you know, like they didn't have any money. New Line Cinema wasn't New Line Cinema at that point. Mm-hmm. And they had to find a whole bunch of like extra sources, like outside sources to back the picture. They didn't have the cash. And
their office was in a van down by the river.
I know, right? With Chris Farley driving. He was their driver.
Oh, bless their heart.
He's proper.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm pretty sure he gets sick at stoplights too.
But the thing is, even though they didn't have the cash, even though they were kind of taking a gamble on this story, they loved the script. They thought it was great. They thought the script was fantastic. A lot of the New Line execs even kind of famously said in Never Sleep Again, like they didn't sleep the night after they read the script because this script was so compelling, and the script with the idea of what this was so scary that they didn't sleep. And that's cool. That's exactly what you want. That's exactly the kind of reaction that you want from this movie.
Yeah. And
you know, you have to think, like, Heather Langenkamp said that this is a Power to the Kids 80s movie because, like, you know, the parents are honestly, the parents are almost as much of a villain as Freddy is, because it's because of them that him in his supernatural form exists. You know what I mean? Like, the parents are the ones that are responsible for what's happening because
I don't know. Like, dude, the Freddy was a fuck.
He was terrible.
Person. He needed to die.
He did need to die.
Where do you go with that?
But at the same time, like,
for that.
I don't know. I mean, would you have done that? Would you have banded together with other parents and killed somebody?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not saying they were wrong. I'm just saying if they wouldn't have killed him, he wouldn't have come back and he wouldn't have become a demon.
What they shouldn't have done was Nancy's mother, which was keep the fucking glove.
Nancy's
what kind
mom,
of
man.
sociopathic bullshit was that? She was like, honey, this was Freddy Krueger's glove. I keep it in the burner. It keeps you guys warm. Like, what the fuck?
No.
If I saw my mother, if my mother came down, took me downstairs and said, "This is the glove that that this child molester serial killer did, and we killed them, but I kept the glove," I'd be like, "Bitch, throw it away."
Turn it into the cops, dude. Well, they can't
turn it into the cops. Give it to John Saxton. He'll know what to do with it.
But like, I don't know, man. Dude. Like, well, he was involved though. That's the thing. He did it. He was part of it. Yes, he was. He was.
No,
Nancy's
he was
dad.
an officer.
And he was involved in it. He did
it
too.
He cannot go. He could not have done it because he didn't really have an idea as to what was going on.
He didn't know about. Okay, he didn't believe that Freddy was in their dreams, but
I don't think he knew. I don't think he knew his wife did it.
I always kind of took it as.
You think that's why they got a divorce?
It was a group of parents. I kind of took it as that's maybe part of the reason that they got divorced is because, like, I mean, that's a pretty traumatic event. Like,
yeah,
like I don't care how happy of a marriage you have. If you and a bunch of other parents go and burn them alive, that's pretty bad. Like, that's some pretty heavy stuff there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd sign on that line too. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying
it would take not washing the
like,
dishes to a whole new level. So yeah.
I don't know. And I mean, if you look at all the parents, though, like all the parents are kind of.
Bro, Vin Diesel needs to be friends with this entire group because they banded together. Yeah. They banded together to kill this guy.
They're all suffering from guilt. The mom is the worst alcoholic I've ever seen. You know, they're the pills.
Bro,
like,
she was drinking the same amount of liquor every single scene. Tito's, I think it was. No, I don't fucking know, but she was drinking like the same brand.
She was drinking straight vodka.
I drank a 6-pack of Cayman Jacks too, and I cannot drink that ever again because I got so sick from it.
She didn't even take a sip. She was like,
yeah. Do it again.
Like, bro, huh?
Do it again.
I'm not gonna do that again. Though. I just realized in hindsight that probably looked awful. But and the other funny thing is she pulls bottles out of everywhere. Literally every scene she's in, she like opens a kitchen drawer. There's a bottle in it. She opens the closet with the towels, so she pulls out a bottle. She's in bed. She lifts under her pillow.
Alcoholic mothers, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, my favorite. And listen, this is nothing against Ronnie Blakely. Ronnie Blakely did a perfectly fine job as Marge Thompson, but it was just funny because my favorite scene with the mom is when Nancy runs downstairs and she's like, "Mother!" and she's screaming, and she's like drunk, sprawled out on the couch, and she's like, "Locked. They're all locked."
Bro, those types of drunks piss me the fuck off.
Like, she's just ditzy and she's half fallen off the couch, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like she's acting like a kid, but the best part is she's not a kid, so I could in the face and not feel guilty about it. You know, that's what kids do. They start like no, or some bullshit like that. So like if I was Nancy, man, I would have lifted the hand of Zeus himself and go right on her face. Be like, bitch, get that Tito out of your face and give me the goddamn keys.
She did break a bottle though. She broke a bottle in front of her.
She did, yeah. And then she wasn't disappointed at the fact that her daughter. Yeah, and Marge wasn't sad that the fact that her daughter like was upset. She was mad that she lost a bottle. She was like, "Fuck, I gotta go get another one."
By the way, Art said, "Yeah, I didn't think it was a big deal until I went last month talking about Buc-ee's and bought a brisket sandwich, T-shirt, and wine. That sounds like a good time. Anytime you can leave somewhere with a brisket sandwich, a T-shirt, and a bottle of wine, that's a good day. That's a success." Successful. They have a lot of merchandise. Check it out once and buy 3 things. I definitely go back for the sandwiches and wine, but I bought a cool t-shirt as a memento of my first and possibly only visit, as tomorrow is never guaranteed. That's true, man. I don't know. Well, apparently we really need to check out Buc-ee's because people are losing their marbles over this place. So
yeah.
We'll have to see. One thing that's interesting, and you know, we kind of talked about the whole whether the parents were right in what they did, because you have to think like the consequences of the parents' the consequences of the parents' actions are being projected on their kids. Like it's like because the parents decided to take the law into their own hands, Freddy actually got what he wanted, which was their kids.
You see, it's like generational trauma.
Okay, Jamie Lee Curtis.
No.
And, you know, keep in mind, like, they went out of their way to call him a child murderer in this movie, which they felt it was a little too much to really go there and say he was a child molester and child murderer. But originally, I think the plan was, like, in earlier drafts of the script, I think it was kind of stated more that he was a child molester, like he was a sexual predator.
Bro, and to think Disney accepted that, too.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think Disney wouldn't have accepted that, but I think it wouldn't even resemble to what it was. I mean, Disney would have completely transformed it into something else. Could you imagine like an animated rated R version of just what this was?
Yeah,
like Johnny Depp's death.
Mickey would literally, Mickey would literally be like, "Ho ho, welcome to Prime Time, bitch.
Welcome to Prime Time, bitch. Ho ho. I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy. Ho ho ho." Could you imagine Nancy
or Goofy doing it, or Goofy doing it like, "Oh, yuck! Welcome to Prime Time, bitch. Yuck!"
You gotta do the Goofy laugh. You gotta do it. I need it to happen.
I just did it.
No, listen, Miguel and I were in college, and we were both in band, and we used to at football and basketball games, whatever else. You got to do the Goofy laugh.
I just did it. No, what you're talking about is like the Goofy scream. Guys,
yeah,
you know how
scream.
Like, you know how like I'm not gonna do it. My neighbor's gonna be sitting there like, what the fuck is up with them? So no, I'm not gonna do it. But you know what I'm talking about? You know when Goofy like gets like thrown somewhere and he like does his scream. Not to toot my own horn, I could do it well.
It's
and loud.
Spot on. I wish you would do it. It is spot on.
Look, one of these days you'll hear it. One of these days. If I think my neighbors died or they moved out and I got no neighbors, cool. Without a doubt. But Pep-Man games, dog. Imagine how many free throws I got the other team to miss because of that.
Dope.
Yep.
Art says, do you guys think a Nightmare animated series would work? It could, but it would have to be rated R. Like, it would have to be, like, very much adult, or else it wouldn't. I mean, if like, it wasn't... Adult
Swim would have to, like, sponsor
it. If it was, like, lukewarm, If it was like lukewarm, then you couldn't do it. It would have to be just full out rated R gore fest.
Dog, can you imagine how scary it would be? Like there's some really like fucked up like scary
animated one. Like you think an animated one would be terrifying?
Yeah,
could be. Could be
because they would be able to do the ominous vibe like really well.
Yeah, if I will say, if you're gonna go. If you're gonna go the route of
not like 3D CGI, like not that bullshit. I'm talking like 2D, like that would be dope.
Normal animation. If you're gonna go the TV series route, whether it's animated, whether it's live action, whatever, I think Freddy's the one to do it with. I know there's talk of a Halloween TV series, and if they do Season of the Witch, that's fine. But if they do, if they do, a Michael Myers TV series, I don't get how that's gonna work. I really don't.
I mean, you never know. They might do what you do, but that you wanted to do. Like it'd be like a TV series with like Loomis like trying to hunt down Michael Myers, like a crime.
Yeah, but like how long can that go though? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's great. It sounds great.
Bro, some of the best TV shows literally only have like 1 or 2 seasons. I'm just saying.
I mean, that's fair. I don't know. That's fair, man. Art says, Brad, what are you drinking? I just finished off some chamomile tea because I needed it because I've been talking all day, and I'm drinking water. So I'm being pretty boring. No alcohol tonight, but that's okay. Sometimes you need a good old cup of chamomile tea. Teal? Chamomile
teal. The color teal, guys.
Yeah. So. And let me ask you this, kind of going back to the child murderer versus child molester thing. Like, do you think they made the right call in toning that aspect of him down? Because later in the series, like especially in Freddy versus Jason and in the remake, they really pushed it. Like they really went there. So, I mean, do you think they were right? I kind of think it works the way they did it. I think it almost would have been too much if they would have made him like overly.
I about said like if he was, it's like the way they said that he was a child murderer. I'm just saying if you're willing to murder children,
it's pretty bad. It's like you're already there. It's
you're already there. Yeah. You're already there at that level of like insanity.
Right. Well,
so,
and like
I mean, yeah, they did fine with it.
And what the remake did really well. And listen, we are in this season, in season 2, we are going to do Elm Street 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we will do New Nightmares, where it's however 6 or 7, how many there are of the original sequels. And we're going to do New Nightmare. We are going to save the remake of Elm Street for a different season, because one of the things we want to do is do a season of nothing but all of the 2000s horror remakes. Like do Rob Zombie's Halloween's, revisit those, do the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and TCM the beginning, do Friday the 13th, do the Elm Street remake, the It 1 and It Chapter 2, like just do the Child's Play remake, all of the big horror remakes of like the big franchises. We'll do a whole season of just those. So we're going to save that for that season. But one of the things that I really liked that the remake did was the remake actually for the majority of the movie, the remake actually kind of tricks you into thinking, holy crap, they killed an innocent man. Freddy really didn't do any of this. He was an innocent guy that they thought did all of these crazy, awful things, and he really didn't. But then at the end of it, they had to ruin it, and they made it that, oh no, he did. Like, he really did do it. Because, you know, again, for the majority of the movie, you're thinking, wow, they killed an innocent person, and that's what made him Demon Freddy. But at the end of the movie, that's when, you know, he there's a scene at the end of the movie. Miguel, I know you've never seen the remake, but it happens pretty much the same way it happens here. But like it, you know, again, for the majority of the movie, you're thinking they killed an innocent man. Mm-hmm. And at the very end, you realize, oh no, he did it. Like he did do all the things. And like, there's even
visual.
There's a scene, and listen, I know people hate on the remake, but the remake did a lot of things really well. I'm kind of excited to rewatch that movie, and honestly, I might even rewatch it like in the next couple of months, because that would be the remake did a lot of things really well. Like, I think the "I'm Your Boyfriend Now, Nancy" actually is better in that movie than it is. Like, I mean, it's cool with the phone, kiss me through the phone. It's cool with the phone thing in the original, but in the remake, Nancy is in a white dress in bed. She's in the same dress she was in as a little girl in bed, and he's on top of her, and he's like kissing her neck, and he like runs the glove up her thigh, and that's when he says, "I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy." And it's like, oh, like it just makes you feel all grody, like it's awful. And it's just, I don't know. There were a lot of things about that movie that were really well done. One of my favorite lines, like one of the main characters, one of the first deaths in the remake, he's walking around in his dream, and he's like, he's scared, and he's like, I think it's Rod. He's walking around in his dream, and he says, "Oh my God." And he bumps into Freddy behind him. And you see like Freddy behind him, and he's here, and he slowly turns around, and Freddy says, "No, it's just me." And then grabs him, and it's like, wow. Like, honestly, I know the remake gets a lot of crap, but I think that remake did and it's not great. It makes some very poor decisions, but the remake does a lot of things really well. So that'll be a fun one to get to once we get there. But we're gonna stick with the original series. Another thing that's funny, this was Johnny Depp's first movie. I was talking about this with my dad earlier. Originally, Charlie Sheen wanted the part, but he also wanted too much money. He wanted too much money, so it went to Johnny Depp instead.
Can you imagine?
So let's talk about the plot and the actual movie a little bit before we get out of here. By the way, if you are watching, we are at 52 minutes in. Please be sure to leave us a like if you have not already. So the way this movie opens with Tina's dream is amazing. We already kind of talked about that. Like the whole, again, we don't really see Freddy. We see him making the glove during like the opening title sequence. Which I actually used a little bit in the Purely and Simply Evil Season 2 trailer. You see him kind of making the glove and things like that. And then when he does the ha, and he's like, I don't know why. It's funny picturing him like as normal human Freddy in his basement, and he finishes it. He's like, ha, ha, ha. Like, who does that? You know what I mean? Only
it's kind of weird to act like that whenever your face isn't like completely disfigured. Yeah.
And you're alone in a room by yourself. It's kind of
yeah. That's some real left brain, right brain bullshit right there, dog.
Yeah.
It's like, who are you trying to impress? The man in the mirror.
But like Tina's opening dream is so cool because, again, it's weird. It doesn't make any sense. It's very strange. Like it kind of immediately throws you into this weird, wacky world of like, oh, hey, what's going on? I don't understand. Yeah. And even when you see Freddy, you only see Freddy like you see his eye come out from around the corner, or you see the glove a little bit, or the scraping. Like, you don't really see like full on Freddy, right? And then even the moment when she wakes up is amazing because she wakes up and, her mom comes in and she's like, Tina, she's like, are you okay? And she grabs the crucifix off of her wall and she hugs it, and then she lays back down. Like, it's a cool opening, man. It sets the mood. And then even when we're introduced to like the four main characters, like I think, do you have a favorite? Like, who is your favorite of like the main four?
Johnny.
Really? Yeah. Honestly, I do like Johnny.
No, my man was just, look, my man wasn't trying to do anything right now. He was just trying to he was just trying to watch that new Miss America pageant. That's all he wanted to do, dog.
Yeah. I like when his mom walks in the room and he's like, Miss Nude America is going to be on tonight. And she's like, he's got his headphones on and she's like, well, how are you going to hear what she's going to say? And he's like, who cares what she says? That's the most teenage boy thing.
He's such a teenager.
It's like, awesome. I love it.
Yeah. So I would rank it probably like, I would say like Johnny Depp's character, Nancy, and then like maybe Tina and A-Rod, whatever it's Rod, yeah.
A-Rod. You kept going to A-Rod. I don't know. I like Rod's okay. I mean, he's definitely.
You feel honestly bad for A-Rod.
You do kind of feel bad for him in the end, even though he is kind of the high school dick jock at the end,
But then you're blamed for like a gruesome murder of that magnitude. Like that's some fucked up shit, man. Like
nobody deserves that. As a kid, nobody deserves that. Yeah.
Like that was a losing battle from the get-go. Because like, how do you explain yourself out of that situation? You really can't. So
honestly, I think my ranking would be the same as for the main four because I don't know. Even Nancy in a few moments, like even like there were a few times I'm like, man, he's trying to be your boyfriend, like a good guy, like he's trying to talk to you. And there were a few times Nancy was like, get off me, or she'd be like, you bastard and stuff. And I'm like, man, what Johnny do? He's not doing anything to you. You know what I mean, he's just trying to be nice and help you out.
It's like, damn, like Johnny Depp manifested his presence right now in this movie.
Goodbye.
I'm so sorry.
I'm leaving now.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. By the way, we are hashtag Team Johnny. I'm just saying.
You most definitely are. So.
You know, and I think that's part of what makes it, like they even said in Never Sleep Again, Wes Craven was like, or Bob Shea or somebody said like they wanted Elm Street to be psychologically damaging. That's why they really built up the relationships between the characters. That's why we get the whole amazing scene. One of my favorite sequences in the movie is the point where we get Tina and Johnny Depp's character and Nancy sitting in the house together. Tina. When they're sitting there and Johnny Depp is on the phone with his mom. I know we keep calling. I know his name is Glenn. I keep calling him Johnny Depp, but
we just love Johnny Depp so much, man. I'm sorry.
I know, right? When Glenn is on the phone with his mom, and he's got all the sound effects on the CD player, and he's doing all the cassette tapes, and he's doing all the different sound effects and whatever. I said CD player, but it was too early for that.
Cassette.
And his mom is like, Ma, I think somebody just died. There's a car accident outside. Somebody's dead. And she's like, call the cops. He's like, yeah, I'll call the cops, Ma. We're good. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. When he hangs up the phone, it's like, that's awesome. And the girls are laughing. The whole thing that the fake out death scene, the fake out scare scene with Rod, when he comes up and he's throwing the rocks at the window and Johnny Depp's like, I'm going to punch the lights out of you. Like out on the front lawn. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. When Johnny Depp, like without a doubt, like he's just the most like harmless man ever. And it's kind of hard for him to be intimidated, except for his part in Black Mass, which is definitely my favorite.
We forgot my favorite line. Listen, we forgot like the Academy Award-winning line of this movie. Of this movie. One of my favorite lines in 80s horror is when the four kids are walking to school and Ron walks up behind him, and I forget what they even say. And for whatever reason, it makes zero sense. Ron goes, "Hey, up yours with a twirling lawnmower," and it's like, what the hell? What does that mean? What is a twirling lawnmower?
Like, hey, son, your New Yorker almost came out, or your New Jersey came out. I don't fucking know.
And
that's some shit people up north would say.
Puerto Rican, if I'm not mistaken. Like,
is he?
Puerto Rican actor.
Well, I mean, there's Puerto Ricans up in New York too, so it is what it is.
But I would just like, it's Springfield. It's Springwood, Illinois. Springfield. That's Simpsons. It's Springwood, Illinois, though.
It's Puerto Rican.
Why do these things always take place in Illinois? Halloween takes place in Illinois?
Hey, dog, stay away from Illinois, everybody. Illinois ain't the place.
I have an aunt from Illinois.
Hey, stay away from Illinois. Market value of Illinois is what that is going down. Wait, do you say Illinois or Illinois?
Who says Illinois? It's
ignorance,
Illinois.
But that's besides the point. I'm asking you. I'm trying to figure out if you're one of them.
Illinois. No, it's Illinois.
Okay.
Illinois. It's like how people say like Walmart's or Myers or Kroger's.
Bro, there's multiple though. I'm going to the Kroger's.
Bro, your Kentucky is really coming out right now.
There's multiple Kroger's. You can't like detail which one.
Your Kentucky is showing. I'm just saying.
Hey, you know what? Fuck off,
really
dog.
Hard. You need to put that Kentucky away a little bit. But yeah, up yours with a twirling lawnmower. It's like one of my favorite parts of the entire movie. It's hysterical.
I'm gonna tell that to my boss tomorrow.
Up yours with a twirling lawnmower. You got to do it in the Italian accent though. Up yours with a twirling lawnmower, or with a twirling lawnmower. I imagine the visual of that. Like, I imagine someone like bent over and a lawnmower. It's like the actual lawnmower part is like up, and the best of it is just like.
Bro, Talk about a missed opportunity. That should have been A-Rod's fucking death by Freddy.
That should have been his dream.
Should have been his dream. What a missed opportunity there, son. Could you imagine Freddy over here like, ching, ching, up yours with a twirling lawnmower and just ram it right up his ass? Talk about a missed opportunity, son. Disney definitely would have picked that up.
Could you imagine the new line, except they're reading the script, they're like, oh, okay. Oh.
So the twirling lawnmower comes back, right? Okay, I see where we're going with
this. No, they read his death scene and they're like, did you mean to put this in? He's like, it's gonna be the greatest. It's like the greatest. It'll be the greatest death scene. The greatest. No death scene will ever match it. It'll be the greatest. Great.
He said, no death scenes will ever.
Listen, we just ruined this movie for me. Every time I see it, I'm gonna see Ron. We're just over with the lawnmower, like.
Yeah. And you know what's so fucked up? If they ever do a remake and someone dies by a lawnmower, they're gonna allude that to that first line.
That was
like
awesome.
That is an Easter egg or a hidden secret from the original Nightmare of Elm Street.
Oh man, that's awesome.
I'm so sorry, guys. I know some of y'all love Nightmare of Elm Street. I love it too. I just think
it's great, man. It's great. That was funny. Now here's the thing. Kind of going back to that scene with when all the kids are in the house. By the way, so like Rod comes. We have the fake out scare scene, and again, that's gets building, but the relationship between all these characters, like that's when you're getting that, of course the two guys are going to bicker and they all bicker and whatever, but obviously Tina and Rod go upstairs to rod each other, and poor Johnny is sitting there. Johnny,
I knew you were gonna say some stupid shit like that.
But it's funny because Johnny Depp goes to kiss Nancy and Glenn is sitting there, he's kissing her neck, and that's another moment Nancy's like, get off me.
I was like, bro, like poor old Johnny. By the way, fuck Tina. I mean, because she was like, guys, can you stay with me because I just had like a terrible dream. And then like later that night and said, can you guys still stay with me because I'm about to get piped down.
But that's the thing though, is like, I don't know if I invited chemistry.
That's a friend right there for you to stay downstairs and listen to your best friend get rotted up by a rod. That's a friend.
Well, and it's funny because Nancy's like, she pushes Glenn off of her and she's like, we're here for Tina. And I'm like, bro, do you not hear what's going on upstairs right now?
Tina obviously don't care about you right now.
I know, like that's the least of her concerns right now. And it even shows Johnny Depp sitting there listening to it, and they were having some, they were having some drunk Loomis and Halloween 5 sex. Like it was wild. They were going crazy. It sounded crazy, like somebody was dying, even though.
Well, I mean, you gotta admit, at least Tina went out with a bang. I guess. Like I don't know. That's one way to go.
Literally.
Yeah.
Sure. But her death scene is great. It's another crazy moment where the dream just seamlessly blends into what was really happening. Like she wakes up, she's trying to get Rod awake, and he won't wake up. I mean, he, it's not like he's dead. He just doesn't wake up. He's still asleep. And the pebbles are being thrown at the window. She goes outside. At this point, it's obvious she's dreaming because she starts being like, who are you? And like she's trying to talk, he's trying to talk, and the scene in the alley where the thing comes rolling out, the top of the garbage can lid comes rolling out. We see the amazing shot. It's one of my favorite shots in the movie when all you see like the end of the alleyway, and all you see is Freddy's shadow. You see the fedora and his head just like come around the corner, but it's just his shadow. All you see is the shadow on the wall, like he's coming, and that's when we get the whole.
Yeah, dog. I saw that. I saw that, and I thought I was watching a Michael Jackson video. Like Smooth Criminal. You know what I'm talking about?
Right? Yeah. He does kind of look like the Smooth Criminal.
Michael Jackson. I swear to God, you got to think. Michael Jackson hired the fucking
he hired John Landis after he hired John Landis and the effects guy from American Werewolf in London.
So you got to think he probably got that scene from Nightmare on Elm Street. Dude, Michael's a weird motherfucker, but you got to respect his artistry.
I know, right? and that's cool. I mean, do you think the arm scene still holds up? It looks a little crazy, and I think that's actually what this image is kind of a reference to.
Bro, it looks dopey as fuck. That looks dope. That's what I mean. Like that right there. Can you imagine that? Like that, like type of like art animated. That's pretty scary.
That would be pretty scary. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, exactly.
Now that you say it, if it looked like that, that would be pretty scary.
Exactly. So I think
it'd
be really dope as an animated show.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure also, for the time, the arms, like the
for the time
scraping the thing. I mean, I'm sure that was really scary. And I love the moment where
wasn't this the scene where he like cut his belly, like maggots came out?
Yeah. Well, no, that was later. I think that was in Nancy's dream. This is when, like, so he goes to chase her, and she turns around to run. But as soon as she turns around, he's running from this way, and she turns around, and suddenly he's there, and she bumps into him, and he's just like standing there laughing. And that's when she goes to run. This is when he goes, "Tina, watch this," and he cuts off like 2 of his fingers, and like the green sludge is squirting out or whatever.
Yeah.
And they, like,
by the way,
if
I was Tina and Freddy was like, "Tina, watch this," I'd be like, "No, fuck you. I'm still running." Like, why do I want to stop and watch? Like, that doesn't make any sense, my guy.
Yeah.
That's like a robber chasing after you, like a mugger chasing after you. And he's like, "Stop, watch this." Like, no, I'm not going to watch.
Can you imagine? And if it was in your dream, hit Miguel, watch this. And you'd been like, no, and turn around and go.
Bro, Freddy would have to make my running scene into like a treadmill because, dog, I'd keep running. Keep running no matter what. He'd be like, "Stop." I'll be like, "No." So Freddy was like, "Fuck it, wheelchair." Treadmill.
Listen, there's a really great sequence in part 3, and it kind of does it a little bit in this film too. But in part 3, there's a scene where she's trying to run, but it's like the hall. I don't even know how they shot it, but it looks amazing. The hallway is stretching. No, it's like it's stretching. It's like she's running, but she's not getting anywhere. But Freddy is getting closer behind her, and he's swinging the glove. And it's such a good scene, man. It looks and you don't really see Freddy. All you see is him run around a corner, and he like stops, and he sees her with the glove up, and she's trying to run, but she's not getting anywhere. And he's gaining on her, and he goes to swing right before she gets away. It's one of the opening shots of the movie, and it's incredible. It's fantastic. But and of course, like, I like that Freddy was kind of in shadow a lot in this movie. Like, we really don't see him. Honestly, the scene when he says, "Watch this," and he cuts his fingers off, like, honestly, that was one of the better shots we get of him, because really the only shots we get are either completely in shadow, like at the end of the movie when Nancy's turning her back on him, or we get the little glimpses of him in the boiler room where his eyes and the glove are kind of going around. But like, we don't, even when he's chasing Nancy around the house in like their final battle at the end, like there's not like we don't get a full in like light shot of him, until the second movie. And I kind of dig that. I mean, I think for this movie, especially, it works, especially because the makeup probably wasn't, I mean, the makeup is good, but like, obviously this Freddy that I put like in the thumbnail, like, that's the Freddy we know. But of course the makeup didn't quite, I don't think it quite looked exactly like that yet in the original film. I think they were kind of, it was still, I think he really came to his own in part 2.
You think?
But, so? I mean,
I've said he still looked frightening, and
he did look frightening. Yeah, he looked terrifying. One of the things that does bother me is the point you were talking about in Nancy's dream when he lifts up his shirt and he lifts up the sweater and he does cut himself and the maggots fall out or whatever. That kind of bothers me because it's just Robert Englund's chest. It's just his hairy chest, and there's no burns or anything. That kind of bothers me a little bit. I noticed that, and I had never really noticed
that sweater's made out of Teflon, I guess.
I noticed it in our most recent watch. But Tina's death. Let's talk about Tina's death a little bit, because this, you got to think this movie was shot in 26 days, had over 80 effect shots. I think the majority of the budget went to the effects. And one of the craziest effects, they used a rotating room twice. They used it once for Tina's death, and they did use it once for Johnny Depp's death. But the stunt was insane. I mean, it's very, like, you'd have to think, being in a room in a box that is on this like thing that's rotating back and forth, which is how Tina was being dragged up and down the walls of the room. I mean, of course, she wasn't really being drug up and down. It was the room rotating with the camera saying stationary, So it looked like Tina's being drug up and down. But I think the first time they tried it, the poor actress, what's her name? Amanda Wyss, the poor chick who played Tina, like they put her through hell. I mean, the bugs crawling out of her mouth, the snakes on her, like the body bag thing, like that was a lot. And the first time they tried to do the stunt, she got, I think she got like claustrophobic, or she felt like she was falling, which she was falling. And I think she was like getting ready to throw up, and they had to stop. And I think Wes kind of like talked her back into going up in there again. And they finally got the shot. But I mean, her death is just, it is gnarly and it's haunting. I mean, it's awful.
I think that whole like room spinning thing was so cool because like, knowing that, and it came out in like 1984, and then in like the Amazing Spider-Man 2 or like Amazing Spider-Man 1, like they use that scene. They use that type of.
They use a rotating room.
Yeah, for like Peter's.
Is that for the lizard thing?
No, when he was like trying to get his like suit off because Aunt May was about to go in the door. Yeah, they use that scene for. Wow, they use that type of thing for it, and I think it's cool how that's like still being used. Like to Amazing Spider-Man 1, and it was first used. I guess it was first used at Nightmare on Elm Street. Also, it was used in Inception too, which I didn't know if you knew that either.
Yeah, I knew about Inception. There was another movie that the actual rig that they used in Elm Street was used for. I think it was only used in 2 movies, which we're going to kind of come back to in a minute. They actually, I think, broke it a lot in this movie. Not for Tina's death, but for Glenn's, because. And I think it's just partially part of the other thing is all of the blood too. Like the gag looks really good. I mean, the blood being drug up the wall when you see her dress lift up and the 4 gashes come, like you don't even see it happen. You just see gashes appear on her.
Yeah, that was scary.
Whoa. I mean, and it happens so quickly. It's like such a good buildup, and then it's really tense when she's running from Freddy, and then it annihilates you in that last few seconds. Even when at the moment where she falls on Rod, because he's sitting there, reaching, screaming, Tina, and he's screaming or whatever. And when she falls on the bed and the blood splatters, that was actually, I believe, unscripted. When she fell, there was so much pooled fake blood that she hit it, and the blood like spattered all over him. And they kept it in the shot because it was so perfect,
They're like. Keep it going. It looks great. And
should we stop? No.
Tina's over here like.
Stop. I know, right?
Literally for $15 an hour in a Taco Bell truck. Fuck out of here. That's what their budget was.
And of course, like Nancy and Glenn run upstairs and Rod's gone. And I think again, kind of what you said, you do kind of feel bad for Rod in that scenario because it's like. You just watch this awful thing happen. You just watch this supernatural thing happen. Like nobody's going to believe you that she was drugged up the ceiling and down the walls. And I mean, just all over the place, and gashes were just appearing. And he even can't explain it. Like even in the scene with Nancy, when Nancy lies to her parents and she's walking to school and Rod grabs her and pulls her in the bushes and he's like, I didn't kill her, Nancy. Like I didn't do it. And they're sitting there when she says, well, just tell me what happened then. And he's like, I can't. Like he couldn't put it into words. He was like, they just appeared. Like I think he kind of quantifies it as like there was somebody under the sheets with her that he couldn't see. But of course, like Nancy says, how could that happen? How could somebody be in there?
I said Nancy should have been detected over fucking over
John
dad.
Saxton.
Yeah, because like she looked out the window and said, obviously someone broke in. And A-Rod's over here just like fucking shivering because he saw his fucking girlfriend that he just piped down get absolutely fucking shredded.
I know.
Jesus.
And even when Rod's arrested, it's just like part of me always kind of feels bad for him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then Nancy's dream, one of her first dreams.
How about I said, like life really just said, up yours with her.
Up yours with a twirling lawn. Nancy, like when the whole school scene when she's asleep.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's really cool is it's cool to see her realize the rules. Like, we learn the rules of this dream world and what's happening through Nancy. We learn that if she puts her arm up against the burning thing, she'll wake up, and she wakes herself up, but she's really burned. You know, if you cut yourself, I always think of Family Guy. There's a scene in Family Guy where Peter is asleep and he's running through the boiler room, and he comes up on Freddy, and Freddy's like, "What do you want?" And Peter poops his pants, and he goes, "Oh, if you poop in your dreams, you poop for real." It's a Family Guy skit. And it's like, you know, you're realizing what's happening in your dreams is really having an effect on you. Even seeing her figure out that she can pull the hat out. And then she thinks, oh, I can pull Freddy out. I can pull him out. And then I can fight him like a normal human being and win.
She was learning quick. You know? Which, by the way, guys, Brad didn't realize that the teacher that was like, you know, like teaching like class, that lady is, what's her name? Lynn Shay, I think. She was in Insidious. She was what's her? Elise Rayner, and the whole Insidious saga stuff. Like, she was like that medium woman. So I thought that was pretty dope.
Yeah, definitely.
Did not age whatsoever. She looked exactly the same she does now.
From 84 to when did Insidious come out? Probably in
2010,
9 or 10.
Yeah, like did not change. Did not change whatsoever.
You know what else I really like about that scene? Again, weird stuff like the body bag thing, her being drug around in the body bag with the trail of blood, the teacher, "Where's your hall pass?" And it's the glove and the sweater. And she said, "Fuck your hall pass." And she goes and walks by or whatever. You know, like they're just the weird dream scenes really, really work. Seeing the guy when he comes up, and the guy who clearly does not want to be up in front of his class reading, and when he, you know, he's reading the text, and then she falls asleep, and again, seamless transition. I think even in Never Sleep Again, they said the guy that read that textbook, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
he's reading because he's reading, and he's like, you know, the Shakespeare, blah 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 blah. And then when we realized she's dreaming, I think Wes said, somebody's told him, go stand up there and just whisper it, like stage whisper. So he went up and he just started going, and it just worked. Like it's just weird. It's kind of like
almost as if like she's like almost as if like she's in dream world and like she can still hear what's going on.
Yes, like it's very strange. But
bro, I'm not gonna lie. I know I said like outer space is like scary as fuck. Nah, dog, your dreams can be scary as shit because it's literally just your imagination just going buck wild. And again, now that you know that fucking Vietnam veterans are fucking dying in their sleep because of so much PTSD. Yeah. I don't know, man. Dreams sound fucking scary as hell.
And I love again, something. Well, even when Nancy's in the clinic and they're trying to figure out what's wrong and they got her hooked up to the machines right before what? Why are you laughing?
the fucking hospital scene is what fucking got me. It's just like, oh, we'll figure out what's wrong with her. It's like, yeah, as soon as she starts flailing like a fucking salamander and like in fucking water, yeah. As soon as she starts flailing like a fish, yeah, you'll figure out what's going on. They were talking about like, you see, it's like a 0.3, you know, it's a 0.3. That's a normal happy dream. It's like, bitch, how the fuck do you know? Like back then, dreams weren't really like a thing of it wasn't like a topic of research back then.
That's the thing. It's like what I was gonna say in that sequence when the guy's talking to Marge, to her mom, and you know, she says, "What are dreams, anyways?" She's probably half drunk, and she's like, "What are dreams, anyways?"
She's like a quarter away from
you know, and he's like, well, we don't really know. And he's having that whole conversation. Again, it's the stuff that Wes Craven included that just makes you think. As an audience member, you're like, oh, what is a dream? Like, is this real? Is this all fake? Is she imagining this? Is this really happening? Like, it's very like, it kind of gets you thinking. Again, another thing that the remake did incredibly well is the remake really dove into like the science of it. Like, you know, if you don't sleep, like I think you can go almost 2 or 3 weeks without food. You can go a week without water. You can't go a week.
No, you can't.
Oh, you could. You
could not go a week unless
under specific circumstances.
Bro, I'm about to call Bear Grylls right now and get that shit confirmed.
Okay, if you're in the Sahara, then no, you can't go a week without water. But if you're like, it just again, it depends. Listen to my point here. Listen to my point here. But you can't. It's scientifically impossible. You can't go days and days on end without sleep. Like you'll lose your sanity, and then I believe it actually kills you. Like your body has to sleep, it has to rest, or you die. Like your body can't handle that. And what the new Nightmare remake, well, I say new, it was 2010. What the remake did so well was it really dove into the science of what happens psychologically when you don't go to sleep. And what happens is you begin to hallucinate. It's called synapses, I think. There's something like that. And like you literally begin to dream when you're awake. Like your brain is starting to shut off. And that started happening. Like there's an incredible sequence in the remake where Nancy and Glenn are trying to buy sleeping pills. And they're trying to stay awake, but it's getting to that point where it's like, I mean, they're going on like day 5 or 6 with no sleep, and it's like, and they're so tired and they're buying sleeping pills, and there's a moment where she's dreaming while she's awake, and it's cutting in and out. It's like she's in an aisle of pills, and it's Freddy scraping the glove on the wall in front of her, and it's cutting back and forth, and pills are falling off of the shelf, like coming towards her, because it's Freddy scraping the glove on the wall, and it's cutting back and forth between, I mean, she's dreaming when she's awake, like, you know what I mean? And that was something the remake did really well. So it's kind of that diving into what is a dream and like the science of dreaming that I think is another thing that makes this movie so good, especially as an audience member, and something that Wes Craven did that was really creative,
Yeah, because usually it's like in most slasher films, it's like, yeah, don't go into an abandoned house.
It's a guy that kills people.
Don't go into a haunted house. Yeah, stay away from this street. Don't go out at night. All of those, pretty easy to stay away from. You can't stay away from sleep.
It's impossible. You literally, you physiologically cannot not sleep. You have to go to sleep. It's inescapable. And that's what makes Freddy so scary. That's why, I mean, Nancy's dream when she's in the school, like she has to get out of it. She burns her arm. The bathtub scene when she, that's when she starts drinking a whole lot of coffee. And
bro, what cracked me up was whenever when Marge was like, "Good night, Nancy," and Nancy was like, "Good night," and then as soon as she shut the door,
the coffee came out. The Mr. Coffee came out
from under her bed. I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah,
I literally said, "Write that down. Write that down."
Got a coffee machine like hidden around your room.
Yeah, that was something. Yeah,
yeah. Well, and it's cool because even thinking about the scene in the bathtub, like going back to the you have to sleep thing, like when her mom, when Nancy's sitting there and she's sitting there, she's like fiddling with her washcloth and whatever, and she's in the bubble bath, and you can tell she's starting to get tired. Her eyes are getting heavy, and her mom is like, Nancy, what's down in there? Don't, huh?
I said, yeah, sitting real low.
Sun's getting real low, big guy. And she's like, I won't, mother. And then she falls asleep. And when you see the glove, that's another weird, that's kind of a weird sexual thing too. The glove coming out from like between her legs up towards her face.
Yeah, don't nobody want no gloves coming up between your legs. That's kind of weird.
Yeah. But that whole scene when he pulls her under the water, that's scary because it's like she's being pulled into blackness. It's not like she's being pulled into a tank. Like I mean, obviously she is
she was gonna go into the sunken place.
What's the sunken place?
Like in Get Out.
What does that mean?
Like have you never seen Get Out?
Yeah, all right, I understand what you're saying.
Old lady, dead ass went. Freddy Krueger literally went down. You know what I mean?
He takes the glove.
If you've seen Get Out, you know what I mean. You know exactly what I mean. Yeah. So because that was like the sunken place in Get Out was a really scary scene, and out of like a really not so scary movie. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna say right now, Jordan Peterson,
Jump. What jumps?
What's his fucking name? Jordan Peele. I think. Yeah. Got it from Jordan Peele. Got it from Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm calling it right now. He has to have.
It's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
But like that whole scene is crazy. Seeing Nancy like piece this together, like the scene when she says to Tina, when Tina's describing this person in her dream, that this man, and Nancy's like, but I had the same dream. And then when she's telling Rod, and Rod's like, I'm dreaming about this guy he's got these 4 knives on his hand, and she's like, that's when she's starting to realize, holy crap, we're dreaming about the same person. Like there's a connection here. Something's wrong. And that's another thing that makes this so cool. And that's even something, again, it's different than Halloween or Friday the 13th, because like Laurie Strode in the original Halloween, she slowly
drink some water.
I know I have the hiccups, thanks. But like she slowly suspects that something is wrong. She feels like she's being watched. She sees Michael outside of her window in the sheets. Freaking the sheets. She sees him. She senses something is wrong, but it doesn't hit her that something is wrong until she finds all of her best friends dead. You know what I mean? Nancy is slowly piecing together this puzzle until the big reveal, like you said, when we get, he can't get you now because mommy killed him. Here's his knives. And it's like, what? You kept his knives? Yeah. Are you kidding me right now? Really? Until that big reveal, you're on this whodunit mystery thing with Nancy as an audience member. Let's talk about Rod's death, because Rod's death, listen, I remember the first time watching this movie when I was a kid. I remember my parents had it on. I remember where I was. And it scared me. Rod's death scared. No, it wasn't even Rod's death. It was before Rod's death. It was Nancy's dream when she has Glenn sit next to her and she's like, I just need you to do something. I just need you to wake me up if I start to look like I'm having a bad dream. And of course, Glenn falls asleep. But, again, we see the fog, like you said, and Nancy, when she goes to the police station and she's looking through the bottom window and she sees Rod asleep, when the door opens and Freddy walks in, and the hat's tilted down so you can't really see his face, but he walks in, he walks straight through the bars, and he's kind of like running the blades along Rod's like shoulder, and he just looks up at her and he's like, and then he like keeps running it along, and like that scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. Like that's one of the like horror scenes as a child that I remember like actually being afraid of, because it's so, the way he just looks at her and he's like, and he just smiles and it's like, weird, like creepo, weirdo. It's just, it's weird and it's scary. And another dude, I keep thinking of like great moments from this movie. Even when Nancy's like, she's like, she's screaming, wake me up. She's like, Glenn, please wake me up, wake me up, wake me up. And she's like, are you here? And all you hear is, I'm here. And then Freddy jumps out from the bushes. Oh my God. That's an awesome scene. That's a great scene. Well, did you have a favorite dream sequence in this movie?
My favorite dream sequence?
Yeah, like what's your favorite dream sequence from it?
I would say it would probably be the first one with Tina.
That's a good one. That's a
just
good
one. The stalking nature that Freddy had throughout the entire one was scary enough for me.
Yeah. I don't know. That one that I was just talking about, that's probably my favorite, because I've really come to appreciate it. Like it scared me, man. Like seeing him walk through the bars, it's almost like, holy crap. Like there he is, like he's not trying to hide in the shadows. Like he wants her to see him because he knows it's going to scare her. You know what I mean? He's not trying to hide.
You notice how like both Tina and Nancy got like dream sequence, like chases. Whereas Rod and Glenn, bro, they just got mopped.
They did. They just got mopped up.
Yeah.
Speaking of being mopped up, like let's get to Rod, or not Rod. Let's get to Glenn's death, because I mean, we already kind of talked about Rod's death and his funeral, which Rod's death is great because, again, scared me because it's everything in the prison. I don't know why, if it was the setting or what it was, it scared me. Rod's death, like they shot it in reverse. Like if you like the sheets wrapping around his throat and all of that stuff and him being hung, they shot all of that in reverse, which is kind of cool. And that whole sequence, it's just eerie. It's one of those things where I think the fact that they shot it in reverse almost makes it look, it kind of gives it an effect. Like it gives it like how are the sheets perfectly coiled, or you know what I mean? Like how are the sheets perfectly coiled? Everything looks perfect before it drags him up. But we talked about his death. We talked about a lot of the stuff at the beginning. Glenn's death was another moment that, again, we used that rotating room thing. And when Glenn dies, man, that is wild. Like, again, with the effect shots. So they had Johnny Depp sitting on the bed after he was watching Miss Nude America. And when he gets sucked into the bed, I think they had people that just pulled him down. And like, no matter how he like tried to get up, they just pulled him down into the bed. And you have to think the rotating room was upside down. So the camera is looking like it's upside, like it's right side up. But the blood pouring out of the bed was actually pouring down into the room. Now, here's the issue with that. When they did that scene, all of the red water that was acting as the fake blood, when it poured down into the room, first of all, it made the weight on the rotating room really unstable, because you got to think that much water is heavy. Water is extremely heavy. So it made it unstable.
Water is wet.
Water is wet. You're right. And when don't you dare try to tell me otherwise. And when you have all this water, all this fake blood pouring down into this room that's upside down, and it made the weight unstable, and they lost control of it. So this room is spinning out of control, and the camera's still rolling, and blood is just splattering. Everything is just being soaked in blood. But not only
that director's probably like,
it was actually really I know, right? It was really dangerous because like stuff started breaking. All of the lights and the electrical things started coming unhooked, and wires, cables were snapping, and it electrified the water.
It sounds like Six Flags.
It electrified the water. Like I think a cameraman got electrocuted or shocked a little bit at least. Like, because it was breaking. Like this room was just out of control and water sloshing. You know what I mean? You want to
Can you imagine?
Like,
can you imagine the set designers probably like, oh shit, that's gonna be a heavy bill, guys.
I know, right? Well, not even the set designer. Like I feel like current Hollywood productions, like the HIPAA guy is like,
yeah. This is a
the HIPAA guy standing in the back of the room going,
this is a case study for OSHA. I would not doubt it in my mind if this was an OSHA like violation.
Yeah. So I mean that sparks flying, the room spinning out of control, the cables are spinning. I mean it was pretty risky, but the end result looked so good. I mean that scene, like when Glenn's parents run upstairs and which of course, like we even had the whole scene with them when the dad's standing out on the porch drinking his beer and he's like, I don't like that girl, like typical early 80s dad. But like when his parents swing open the door and blood is just soaking everything and it's dripping from the ceiling. I mean, that the line that sums up the best line, it's one of the best lines in this movie. The line that sums up Glenn's death for me is when Nancy realizes he's dead, and she calls John Saxton's character, and he's like, yes, baby, I understand, I'm hearing you, but you need to get
Daddy,
sleep. You need to get sleep, being whatever. You're being whatever. And and he goes upstairs and he's like, he says something like, what'd the coroner say? And the guy's like, the coroner's been in the bathroom. He hasn't stopped puking since the first time he saw it. Or he's been in the John puking since the first time he saw it. And
bro, that is to this day.
That's the line that just sums up Glenn's death. It's so, as a parent, as somebody outside, as the coroner or a police officer walking into that scene, you're like, what was that? What caused this? And then but as a parent though, like the thought, like even his parent, like when John Saxton walks in his house and the blood is dripping through the ceiling, like it's like coming through the drywall, and they're putting buckets underneath of it, and the dad was like, oh my god, and he's like, I'm gonna be sick, and he goes like it's haunting, it's terrible.
That scene alone made Johnny Depp the star he was.
Because he went out like that.
Yeah. No, but like the coroner is like throwing up, like, dog. It'd be more disgusting if he was like shredded, like as if he was attacked by a bear.
But he was, though.
But it was there was no body. It was just a shit ton of blood.
Bro, Freddy turned him into like chop meat. Like
it turned him to like a red slushy. But like there was no like you didn't like it'd be disgusting if like
I'm never having a red slushy again.
It'd be weird. It'd be like disgusting if it was like this puddle and all you saw was like a finger, an eye, or something like that. Yeah, that'd be disgusting. But all he saw was like a shit ton of blood. Yeah. Like, I don't know.
Listen, Glenn basically turned into the background of the Purely and Simply Evil logo in the top, like the left corner. That's basically what Glenn was at the end of this movie. And of course, this is like the thing that really provokes Nancy into, this is what provokes her into doing the booby traps. And it's like, okay, she is going to bring Freddy from her dream into the real world.
Freddy killed my boyfriend that I didn't care for enough.
I know, right? I didn't get to properly be nice to him. And what's cool is like, what I think that one of the coolest scare scenes of the movie is when she goes through the whole dream sequence. She's trying to find him, and it's scary because she goes downstairs from her room. She goes into the basement, and she's walking around the basement, and the glove is gone. But she also finds other stairs that go into the boiler room, which is scary. It's like you're going from like the ground floor to hell. You know what I mean? It's terrifying.
No, that property value probably went up like 30%.
You get the basement, and then you get the basement.
You get the basement, yeah.
The basement. Talk about tornado shelter. This baby goes 80 feet in the ground. But it's cool, like when she gets to the point. It's like a Lori moment from H2O when she's got the axe and she shuts the gate and she's like, Michael, and she's screaming. When she's like, Freddy, and she's screaming for him and like she wants him to come for her. At the point when she tackles him at the end of her dream, you almost think it's not going to happen. Like it's not going to work. Because she's, the alarm goes off and she wakes up and she's like, oh. And it lets you breathe for a second. Like it goes from a really intense moment to, oh, it didn't work. It's like, crap, like, what is she going to do now? What is she going to, and then immediately when he jumps out from behind the bed and stabs the bed and it's like, oh, so it's working. What do you think of the final fight scene, all the booby traps and the Kevin McAllister moment, the Home Alone moment?
Oh, it was you that made me die laughing whenever, because the first one was the sledgehammer to the balls. All you heard was like
he does though. If you really listen, like it's like he finally gets the door open and the sledgehammer falls and it hits him in the nuts and he goes, oh, and then he stumbles back before he goes. Even the moment when I like when he runs downstairs and she says something about, she's like, come on, Freddy, come on. And they're like dodging each other. Whoop, 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 whoop. And they're like dodging each other on the couch. And I forget what she says to him. She says something to him and he goes, I'm going to split you in two. And that's a cool moment because you just see like half of him in shadow and he's trying to run around. I also really like the moment when she breaks the window and realizes that, and like John Saxton and the cops.
That shit pissed me the fuck off.
What? Are you talking about the cops standing on the lawn?
Yeah, and the cops standing in the lawn. I was like, bro, this boy just got slushy, and you don't know where the killer is, and all of a sudden the bitch out across the street broke the window and said, "He's here, he's here." Synapses in my brain would, be telling me maybe the killer's across the street.
All right. Well, and he even sits there like he's got a cup of coffee and he's like,
now calm down. Everything will be all right. It's gonna be
okay.
Yeah.
He goes, everything's gonna be okay. And she's like, the killer. I forget what she said. She's like, go get my dad, you asshole. And then she runs back in the room to keep fighting Freddy. And
yeah, it's like, go get my dad. The killer's here. I'll be right back. I'm gonna kick his ass.
That's awesome.
All I needed from that deputy was the.
I know he was definitely got his. He went through the police academy at the same time as the woo. It's the H5 cops. But I really like once they do break in and she sets Freddy on fire. like they get down to the basement, she sets him
that
on
one
fire,
got me.
and they run around, and he, like notice he's scared. He's like, no, no, and that's the one thing that scared him is being set on fire again. I love when she runs upstairs. John Saxton breaks the door down, and they meet in the living room. And she goes, "Oh my god!" And she runs back through the kitchen, and it's just fiery footprints going up the stairs.
Yeah,
that is such an incredible moment.
Yeah,
because it's almost like we forgot about the mom. She's drunk upstairs in bed. She's gonna be hungover for at least 3 days. Like she's up there. She just finished her 4th bottle of Tito's, and it's like, holy crap! And when she swings the door open, and Freddy's on top of the mom, it's like. No.
Bro, the way she got charred up, which it does surprise me because her body's filled with Tito's already, which is extremely flammable. But yeah, she got crisp.
Well, and honestly, that's one of the cheaper looking effects in the movie.
When I almost covers and it's like, and she's like slowly.
Well, even down. Even her like burned corpse though, it's very like.
Yeah. It's like you got that like
she just like lowers back into the ground and it's like, what was that?
Yeah, that was like a convenient purchase at like Halloween City, like the pop-up shops. Like their New Line Cinema was like, oh shit, that one could work. Buy it.
Yeah. By the way, side note, I saw Spirit Halloween is making a movie, and I believe it's supposed to be. Listen, I believe it's supposed to be like, I think it's supposed to be like there's a Spirit Halloween in a mall, and at night all of the animatronics and the props and stuff come to life. It's like Night at the Museum, but it's Spirit. It's a Halloween.
It's like Five Nights at Freddy's.
And who is? Oh my god! Yeah, it is. Who? There's like a pretty big name attached to it.
Nicolas Cage.
Oh, it's not Nicolas Cage. I know that'd be funny.
No, but by the way, shout out to Nick Cage right now because his most recent movie, I forgot what it's called, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Nice.
Yeah,
he's a good actor. People just give him crap because he does pick some weird movies though. Like he does some weird projects,
but he embodies them.
Yeah, Spirit Halloween store film in the works, starring Christopher Lloyd. Christopher Lloyd is doing it.
Who the fuck is Christopher Lloyd?
Are you dumb? The Doc from Back to the Future.
Dope.
Yeah, he's doing it. Where's the? Oh yeah, this is the synopsis. When a new Spirit Halloween store appears in a deserted strip mall, 3 middle school friends who think they've outgrown trick-or-treating make a dare to spend the night locked inside of the store on Halloween night. But they soon find out that the store is haunted by an angry, evil spirit who has possessed the creepy animatronic characters. It really is Five Nights at Freddy's. The kids embark on a thrilling and spooky adventure in order to survive the night and avoid being possessed themselves.
How is Christopher Lloyd going to be playing a middle schooler? I'm confused.
He's not. I think he'll probably be like the owner or something. You know what I mean? Something like that. But
yeah.
I don't know, so that's kind of interesting. But even what do you think about the way she beats Freddy in this movie? Because you got to think he's a supernatural character. He's not a Michael. He's not a you can shoot him 6 times, or he's what I mean. Like not like Jason dies at the end of every movie, but somehow he survives. You know what I mean? But this whole idea of you take Freddy's power from him if you turn your back on him, and
it literally got very like don't look under the bed vibes for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or it's like, just act like he doesn't exist. And then I was like, bro, what is this? Reading Rainbow?
Well, it's funny because
the fucking CGI there was very like
it was again, I think they were definitely running out of movie by the time they or running out not running
they were running out of movie.
I meant running out of money by the time they got to the end of the movie. That's what I meant to say. But like I think and it's funny because like with the rules that Wes Craven established in part 1, the writer and the director of part 2, because Wes Craven didn't come back for part 2. They didn't like what Wes Craven did with the rules. They thought the rules should change in part 2. So that's why part 2 is a little bit different in terms of what can happen. Part 2 is more of a possession movie than it really is than it is the same kind of thing as this. It's different.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm honestly because have you seen any of the Nightmares all the way through?
I guess not.
I'm real curious. But I love part 2. I know a lot of people are kind of on the fence about it. I think part 2 is fantastic. I honestly, it's almost an equivalent to this. I mean, well, no, it's a step below, but it's great. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff in part 2. Freddy looks the scariest in part 2. Freddy has never looked scarier than he does in part 2. Listen, part 2 and Jason's dream in Freddy versus Jason. Freddy looks terrifying. And it's because they modeled him after a witch. Like, they made him look like a witch, like a male witch. Like, he's got like the long, like, not, I mean, of course, not like I'm talking Pinocchio, but I mean, he's got like a longer nose. Like, he's got kind of the pointy ears. Like, he's got this weird witch look to him. He looks great in part 2. So, but yeah, and we kind of talked about the ending as well. Like, when, the ending, I think the ending
that was some real like weird ass like Wish on a Star vibe. It's like, I want my friends back, I want my mother back, and then boom,
yeah,
all of a sudden she's like, you know what, I'm gonna stop drinking. I said, this bitch is in a dream. Well, it's like having a foreign parent say they're proud of you. It's like, bitch, that's in a dream.
There were a lot of things that Bob Shaye and Wes Craven actually disagreed on, and one of those things, like they disagreed on the drippy stair thing. Like, when Nancy goes to run up the stairs and her foot, it's like the stairs are like, it's like this goopy gray slimy mess, which was actually, you know what that was, the effect to do the goopy stuff on the stairs?
What?
It was Bizquick.
Bizquick?
It was Bizquick, like what you make pancakes with. The effects guy in Never Sleep Again said, if you mix Bizquick with water and leave it and let it sit for like 40 minutes, like, he said, it's like the goopiest, stickiest mixture you've ever had. And it was just Bizquick that was dyed and like over made with water that was just like goopy, and like you could, and that was what they did for the stairs. Wes Craven didn't like that. Bob Shaye did. The ending, the whole thing with the ending, I'm not sure how Wes wanted to end it, but the whole thing with the car, I think Wes kind of wanted to leave it as if you turn your back on Freddy, he can't get you. And Bob Shaye wanted a hook. He wanted, of course, he's going to be like, we want somebody to be able to do a sequel if it's successful. So that's when they did the car that looks like Freddy's sweater that comes down, and it's the trick with Marge being pulled through the glass. Like, that's how the ending came to be. And it's funny because even when we cut to the little girls going, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you, that whole thing, I believe that was actually Heather Langenkamp's boyfriend that came up with that idea.
Oh, okay.
The girl who plays Nancy. It was her boyfriend at the time, like her like real life boyfriend, that came up with the idea to do that. And I think they kind of had the rhyme written and they just put it together. So, so that's kind of how did you like the ending, or did you think it was kind of like, the question is, should it have had more of a happy ending, like Nancy wins? Because with the end of this one, it's almost like, but what happened though? It kind of leaves you a little confused, especially given where Nancy comes back in part 3, because it doesn't really acknowledge the ending at all.
Really?
No, it doesn't really acknowledge the whole them getting in the car with Glenn and Rod and Tina and the Freddy car and it driving away and the mom getting pulled through. Like, it never really acknowledges.
Is Nancy in the sequel?
She's not in part 2, but she is in part 3. She's in part 3, and John Saxton is in part 3 too. So you get John Saxton back for one more movie.
The man.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess the ending is I kind of expected the ending to be like that, because it's like, again, it's like because I only know Freddy from like Freddy versus Jason, or like he only gets his powers from people knowing who he is. So like at that moment, Freddy lost his powers from Nancy when she said, "You're not real," but Nancy's still gonna remember Freddy, right? So it's like he's not really dead then. Yeah. So I kind of figured it was gonna be like that. And the way it was like so bright and shit, I was like, dog, ain't no way in hell this is not real. This ain't real. Yeah. So could you notice how like the first couple of minutes of this movie, it was like all bright and sunny and all that shit, and then the rest was just all gloomy and dreadful. I was like, oh fuck. And then we jump back to Dream World, and it's like, okay. Yeah.
Well, any way you slice it, A Nightmare on Elm Street is definitely one of the most influential movies of the 80s. I mean, like we said, Freddy became a pop culture icon after this. I mean, it kind of pissed Wes Craven off because Wes Craven was like, here you have this awful human being, this monster of a person that, does terrible things to children, and he haunts you in your dream, and he's supposed to be this scary figure. And by the end of the 80s, he was the king of the 80s, man. People were dressing up like him, and they wanted to be him, and t-shirts and mugs and glasses. I mean, it was just like, he was a big deal. I mean, so it was kind of
what a giant middle finger to his trauma. Right? That's all I know, to
his childhood trauma. All of the things that, So, but I mean, it was great. It was great. It was innovative. It was new. It was something different that they hadn't seen before. Even if you look at, The Exorcist, if you look at Jaws, if you look at Halloween, it was new. It was something different. Wes Craven definitely knocked it out of the park. This one is a 10 out of 10 for me. 100%.
Oh, are we rating this movie?
I don't know. You like to rank them. I'm surprised you haven't been like, what's your ranking?
In regards to horror in general, in regards to horror alone in the genre, I'm gonna give it a 9.2. Yeah,
that 0.8's missing, huh?
Yeah, it's a good movie though. I like it.
A good movie.
I really like it.
And I'm curious to see if you're gonna like a lot of the MTV Freddy sequels. You know what I mean? Where he just gets he's
just having fun.
You know what I mean? It really is. We're just having fun at this point, especially when we get to 4, 5, and 6. It's like, holy crap on a cracker! This is just insane.
Crap on a cracker.
I mean, we get Freddy playing.
All it shits it.
We get Freddy playing Nintendo. We get Freddy riding a broomstick. It's wild, man. We get to wild stuff in this franchise, but it's gonna be fun. Again, we are talking the entire Nightmare on Elm Street franchise in season 2 of Purely and Simply Evil. Super excited about this season. Super excited about this series and what we got coming up. That is going to do it for us for our opening episode number 11 of season 2 at 1 hour and 52 minutes, just short of 2 hours. If you are watching after the fact, please be sure to leave us a like and consider subscribing to our channel. We do new shows every single Tuesday, Saturday at 8 p.m. and 10 a.m. Eastern, except for this Saturday. We won't have one this Saturday. Every once in a while we have to do that. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Do not forget to leave this episode a like, and please leave us a comment and let us know your thoughts on A Nightmare on Elm Street. This is definitely a classic, and we're really looking forward to diving into this series even more. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. You are the best. God bless, and we will talk to you soon. Peace.